representing Canada's financial capital, the fourth largest city in North America, and the most amazing city in the world. This is Toronto Business Journal.
Hello, everyone. This is a great edition of Toronto Business Journal. We have an amazing guest today, Chris, to talk about his experience and observations about the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, our nation's capital. So take it away, Ruth.
Good day, everyone. This is Ruth, and I am here to introduce our special guest for today. He's known as Red Prince on YouTube, and he will be talking about his observations of demonstrations in Ottawa, Canada. Let us all give a warm welcome to Chris.
Awesome. So thank you very much for Chris coming on the show. Talk about your experience and observations. I wanted to invite you to the show today because I've been going into the Freedom Convoy myself personally, being in Ottawa, and you've been doing a wonderful, amazing job as a warrior out there, so to speak, for lack of a better word, giving people a bird's eye view of all sorts of crazy stuff happening during the pandemic. And I wanted to also commend you because from my standpoint and the standpoint of a lot of people who actually personally experienced the convoy, there's a lot of unfortunate misinformation going on about what the convoy is. And so this is a great opportunity for us to discuss actually what was going on, as opposed to just a lot of dissembled information and questionable information and questionable reporting that's going on in went on in the Freedom Convoy, which just recently was broken up by the police. So I just want to get your perspective, my perspective of the convoys that I've went down there, and I saw nothing but positive energy, Canadian flags, people, patriotic people concerned about their future, their country, who just simply want to have an open dialogue with the Prime Minister about concerns they've had about vaccine passports, mandates, and a lot of other things in their mind. At the same time, what I get disturbed about, as not only a Canadian in general, but as a visible minority and a Black Canadian specifically, was when I heard the Prime Minister, in an exchange with a Jewish member of Parliament, and I'm also Jewish, he said that, oh, well, you're just aligning yourself with people in swastikas. And when I was out there, I didn't see anybody with swastikas, okay? There was one person I saw in the video that had a Confederate flag, but the protesters quickly shamed him and isolated him. He appeared to be somebody inserted there so that the mainstream media could somehow suggest that, oh yeah, all these swastika people out there. But they quickly, peacefully isolated him and outed him as having a very inappropriate symbol out there. So just want to get your experience and observations about any observations of racism, because my background is human rights. I've have a lot of history and background and experience of racism, and I didn't see that. So what was your experience and observations of the Freedom Convoy in terms of racism and all these allegations being charged at it, Chris?
Well, there was simply none of that there. You saw all kinds of people there, Jamaican people, Asian people, Black, brown, Native, anything. And that was never even an issue. It wasn't even like we noticed or cared about it. It was almost like, oh, you're a person that just wants to be free. All right, come in. You're welcome here. Here's some food. What's your story? It was never even paid attention to, the race side of things. It was always just about, what's your story? Tell me about yourself, and let's move forward together. Glad you're here.
Yeah, that was my observations as well. To me, the crowd was like a patriotic crowd. People, I've seen even more Canadian flags than Canada Day. And the interesting thing, which I noticed as well, is that there were I've heard a lot of people who are separatists who said that, this is the first time they're proud to be a Canadian. They would have their Canadian flag with their Quebec flag. I saw flags of all provinces when I went down there. Like you saw, I heard native drumming. The person, for example, who got run down there by the horses, she was I believe Mohawk background, but a First Nations person.
That's right.
There was a black person I saw there who was, carrying a flower right in the front line. People of all diversities, people being very, very friendly. I saw and felt no hostility, no animus. At the same time, to me is really offensive when I see people in the House of Commons, and particularly the Prime Minister, characterizing these people as a bunch of racist psychopaths, hate mongers, talking about hate mongering. And just from my personal standpoint, when I saw people in the House of Commons, like one gentleman who I'm not sure if his name is, but he was a visible minority as well. And he was talking about the swastikas. And I could tell just by my personal opinion, I'm just giving you my personal opinion, that he looked like he was saying script when he was talking about, the swastika. I mean, he didn't look like he even believed what he was saying. And, I know that in party discipline, you have to toe the line. And those people I saw there in the debate in the House of Commons who are, including visible minorities, talking about the hate and all that stuff out there, to me is, complete fabrications. And one particular thing that comes to mind when I was watching your live feed, Chris, is that last part when it was the last day of your coverage, when they took out the sonic, what do we call it? The sonic booms. When do you see that? You were saying doesn't those things make your ear bleed? So how do you feel like seeing stuff like that with such a peaceful protest?
Well, so that's the thing. It was honestly a shock. I couldn't even describe to you what it felt like to be there and to see all that. It was really depressing. That's what I could say. Like, I came home and I was just like such a long face for a couple of days. I just couldn't believe that they would do that. And there's a lot of things to touch on, actually, that you mentioned in terms of like the misogyny and the racism and all that stuff, because it's brilliant when you think about it. It's absolutely brilliant. Like, it's textbook, just like tyranny. I mean, when it comes to, okay, you got to turn the people against the movement. And then when you use violence, everyone will cheer. It's just, the manipulation is just, it's so classic. It's so perfectly done. And I actually watched an interview with a guy who knew personally the guy who was carrying the swastika flag. And the story behind that was he was carrying that around and saying, is this what you want your country to be like? So he didn't personally identify with, being a Nazi or anything. And then later on, he realized, oh no, what did I do? Because they realized that they're going to use that as ammunition. And see, the thing is, they just use every little bit of thing. And in a massive group of hundreds of thousands of people, there's going to be a few bad apples, right? There's going to be a few little tiny bits of vandalism. There's maybe going to even be a little bit of racism. But can we say that that was what the whole movement was about? No, absolutely not. And like, for a person who was there for 2 weeks and didn't see any of that, that should tell you how little of that there really was. But the thing is, they're going to blow that out of proportion. They're going to make it seem like the whole movement was about that. And it was so very clear that it was working, because there were so many hagglers, anti-protesters, they called themselves, where they would come up to us, go home, terrorists, get out of here. And it was actually funny, because any of the racism and misogyny that was going on was by the anti-protesters, because I'm not sure if you know the YouTuber War Campaign. He was
War Campaign. Yeah, I know. He's an Indian background, South Asian background.
Yes, exactly. So he and I were collaborating with each other. We were walking together, and we saw this anti-protester, and we thought, okay, let's go talk to her. And she was there holding up these signs. You could tell that she was angry, and I personally think that she was paid to be there. But she straight up singled him out and said, you're a terrorist. And he was so angry, because he's like, you know what, ma'am? The last time I've been called a terrorist was right after 9/11. He was so angry. So, yeah, like in terms of that, it was very, very little. But it was in summary, it was very, very disappointing, the whole thing, how it was handled, especially by the people in Parliament.
So there's 2 points you made. So the first point is that the particularly salient experience of racism was by someone who was against the demonstrators, who singled out someone who of South Asian background and stereotyped him to be a terrorist, based upon his appearance. So that's, I mean, because there was no experience of just walking in the crowd and say, oh yeah, you're a terrorist, or I'm not going to. It's the anti-protester who's in line with the Trudeau government.
Yeah,
they're the one who started coming up with the racism, the anti-protester. And the person there with the Nazi flag was just simply trying to warn people that their society could evolve in terms of this symbol, but he wasn't supporting the Nazis. He was just simply there to sort of warn people that this is what their society could become. And it got twisted by some mainstream media presence there as being a supporter of Nazism.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. One of the, I see a very interesting theater going on between Trudeau. And again, I mean, I just find it so ironic and hypocritical that our prime minister, who has been caught with blackface, all of a sudden being his blackface costume in his youth, all of a sudden becomes an expert in race relations, and then starts to contrive this idea that all these racists, they're fear-mongering, hateful people, and then he conveys that as sound bites to this mainstream media, including the CBC, who then projects it all across Canada and creates this narrative for people who are not there to give the impression as if Ottawa is being taken over by a mass of mad, psychotic, violent Nazis who are trying to rip the place apart. I mean that is like, again, Hitler. Going back to, we're talking about Hitler. Hitler used to blame the communists, and he used to use that technique that you were talking about of whipping up the masses to a targeted hate, so that he could then legitimate the use of force against them. He says, "Oh yeah, they're tearing up the place. They're violent. They're insurrectionists." Then use that to then create the basis of tyranny. So, do you have any sort of thoughts on like that sort of? And I just find it interesting as well that our prime minister, I mean, with the First Nations, I mean, his only response to the residential schools in terms of the recommendations was to lower the flag half-mast, and while he's doing that, and then he puts a knee to the BLM protesters, and that is his effort as far as being I'm for equality, I'm for visible minorities. That was basically his whole effort as a prime minister is summed up by just putting a knee during the protest, and all of a sudden he's an expert on race relations. So I just find it, to me, I just find it, I'm a little bit passionate about this because I didn't see all this stuff going on that he's talking about. It was a peaceful, warm people. People were like, high-fiving, this, feeding the homeless. Did you observe that as well, Chris? This feeding, this sort of charity to other people. It's a complete opposite of the narrative of the prime minister.
Well, and it's funny, I wanted to make a standalone video about that because I feel like there's just not enough people talking about it. And especially, so there's a few things to touch on there that are very important. And I think the overwhelming fact here is just the massive hypocrisy, because it's all for show. He's just an actor. I mean, he was a drama teacher before he became prime minister. So it's like, he's the best actor possible. I mean, when it comes to the Indigenous people, he pretends that he cares about them. Once he's on camera, oh, buddy, come here. I appreciate you. I love you guys. Oh, all this stuff. But then when a Mohawk lady gets trampled by horses, he's silent. And then when one of the organizers of the convoy, she's, I believe, part Indigenous as well. She's getting locked up for now possibly 10 or more years for just participating in organizing the convoy. So it's just crazy. These type of things he's totally silent on. But then, oh, I really care about the Indigenous. It's all a lie. And then when it comes to stealing food from the homeless, I personally watched him say that. I watched those words leave his lips, and I'm like, wait a minute, but I'm there. I'm seeing completely different. Why are you saying that? So, and I was at the food tent one night, and by the way, this tent is 24 hours operating, and it serves absolutely anybody for free. So there was this homeless guy, and he went up there. And by the way, these aren't just like, the cheapest of the cheap meals. Like, this is like gourmet stuff. Like this homeless guy, he came up, he's like, oh, like, I don't know if I can eat here or whatever. And they just gave him like a massive steak. And he was so happy. He was speaking mostly French, so I couldn't understand, but he was rocking back and forth while eating it. He was so happy. He was showing it to me and everyone else in the tent. Oh, look at what they gave me, all this. And it was like this was an older guy too, like 55, 60 years old. I've never seen someone like that, so giddy, so happy to get something. And it's just, to anyone who was there, okay, man, you got a steak. So what? Like, what's the big deal? But to him, it meant the world. And so I think that shows just how hypocritical the people in Parliament are, because this is what I'm seeing. This is my perspective. And they're saying something completely different. And all the people on the ground are watching this like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? This is totally incorrect. But then all the people around who've never been to the protest are like, yeah, Nazis, fascists, get them out of there. And so they just completely believe the narrative. And that's why I was there. That's what motivated me to continue live streaming every single day, just to get the truth out there.
Yeah, because again, we commend you for getting the truth out there, because we otherwise we would be relying on broadcasters like CBC, CTV, and the others, which are so much wanting to support this narrative that the Prime Minister and the Jagmeet Singh of the NDP is putting out there. Of Jagmeet also say, oh yeah, these Nazis, these hate people, I'm a visible minority, look at all these hateful people out there. The stuff that Jagmeet Singh, our Prime Minister, and all the MPs of the Liberals and the NDP are putting out there about these hate-mongering people are not only lies, but they're designed to intentionally foment division in Canadian society. It's like, I'm so disturbed for people who actually experience real racism in this country, like myself, and I'm completely offended by the use of racism in this propagandist purpose that is being used against people who are anything but racism. You're talking about the charitable, and I also heard that crime was down, as well in Ottawa, and that the streets, the place was clean. They didn't just litter. I've gone to events like Blues Fest, Blues Fest in Ottawa and stuff, and all kinds of events. And after the Blues Fest, the place is just packed with litter. It's like litter every half a meter less. It's like you just took out hundreds of garbage cans and just threw it all, dumped it all over the place. That's how Blues Fest is. That's how a lot of festivals I've gone to. And in Ottawa, it was completely immaculate. These people, the immaculate. The only mainstream media which seemed to be really trying to get the truth out there is Fox. That's the United States. They were there. They were sincere in talking about hypocrisy of our Prime Minister and talking about the duplicity and all this kind of stuff like that. But aside from Fox, we had to rely on yourself and other live streamers to really get the truth out there. So what other observations in terms of the aside from that the touching story about them, the charity that you have observed with that one particular incident. Is there any sort of incidences that came to mind in terms of that sort of completely contradicted with the narrative that you saw being presented in various media like CBC and CTV? Any sort of points that sort of come to mind which really stand out in terms of your 2 weeks of live streaming?
Yes, one. But there's something else that I want to touch on before that.
Yeah.
I think that when you mention Fox News, that's a very good point, because it seems like all of the legacy media, the ones that are perpetrating these lies, are now becoming boycotted by everyone. I mean, I'm looking at the view counts of CNN on YouTube, and like a regular YouTuber with like maybe 500,000 subscribers would get way more coverage than CNN, like a world-renowned media station, which is just mind-boggling, because that shows how badly they're doing. People don't want to listen to them anymore. And when I was there one night streaming, somebody from Fox News, I think it was Sarah Carter, came in, and she was showing people in the crowd how many people were live right at that moment watching them. Can you guys guess how much it was?
Ooh, how much was it? It's probably like, how much?
How much?
25 million people watching live.
Wow.
25 million people watching live in terms of Fox, or through you, or
Fox. Just Fox,
just Fox. Okay, 25 million. So they were getting the views because people respected them as putting the truth out there more. Fox.
Everyone wanted to know what was going on. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
that'd be unbelievable. Yeah.
But then, coming to my point, I was walking one time just down one of the main streets, and I had this man approach me, and he had a mask on, and he said, "Hey, are you a streamer?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he says, "Well, my name is John. I forget his last name." And he introduced himself. He put his social media information on air, and then he said, "Hey, Chris, I'm doing an experiment. So I identify with the Convoy, but my wife was accosted at her workplace for wearing a mask. The people were like, 'Oh, you don't need a mask here. Get that off.' So he says, 'I'm going to do an experiment.' I don't know if it was just because she was a woman or what the whole situation with that was, but I'm going to put a mask on. I'm going to walk through the entire strip of the Convoy, and I'm going to see what everybody says to me. I'm going to see if they are violent towards me for wearing a mask." And there was no violence whatsoever. People were wearing, people who wear masks, and that just touches back to the whole like race thing. Nobody's looking at what you look like, what you're doing. I mean, even to the people who are anti-protesters, trying to provoke people, trying to, insult them and just beat them down and knock them down a couple of pegs. Even those people, okay, well, what can I do for you? How can I change your mind? It was just pity on them. It wasn't anger. Like, oh, we feel bad that they think that way. We feel bad that they were so brainwashed and that they don't have the mental power to think outside the box. So honestly, it was just, it's honestly the rule now that I go by is almost look at the mainstream media and then believe exactly the opposite.
Yeah, pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, the mainstream media and government seems to, and the various business interests which have vested economic interests in the pandemic, seem to be all on one side to put together a narrative which is consistent with their efforts to keep going in the direction they want, even and to use tyranny as a basis of reinforcing the agenda and direction they want to take society. Which, I mean, and then we have the the media just sort of going along with it. So I mean, to me, that's very disturbing. I was also disturbed by the interim leader of the Conservative. Her name is Candice Bergen, I believe. So I guess you heard about that. There was some gun incident which happened I think it was yesterday in Rideau Center. And then and because of this gun incident, she was quoted as saying, "Oh, well, I guess they needed the Emergency Act after all." I mean, I don't see what a gun incident in Rideau Center, after the police already cleared out all the truckers and cleared out downtown of all these protesters, has to do with legitimating an Emergency Act, which is now seizing people's bank accounts when the charity was in fact a legally recognized entity. How could somebody carrying a gun in Rideau Center be used to? I mean, so that just goes to show how weak the opposition is if they are prepared to go along with a narrative because of an unrelated incident after protesters already cleared, and then to link the gun incident to protesters, which are already cleared out by the police. So, I mean, it's just this bizarre things happening, right now with respect to our political representation. So we're having like the truth on one side, and then we're having a narrative on the other side. And then we have the sellouts, people who are just going along with the narrative because it pays better and are prepared to sell out their fellow Canadian based upon complete lies. I mean, patriotism, people wearing the flags, and then the prime minister says, "Oh, these people are swastikas," but maybe in his mind, and the prime minister's mind, maybe he's in his mind is saying that all those Canadian flags in his mind are swastikas. I mean, I don't know what's going on in his mind, but they're definitely not real swastikas. At least he's going to call thousands of Canadian flags out there swastikas. And then I heard the police were stopping people in Ottawa for flying Canadian flags. Do you hear anything about that?
That's exactly what I was going to say next. Yep. So, yeah, people are targeted now with flags flying. I don't know how they can punish or charge them in any way. I mean, that's not illegal. But I did also hear that in other provinces, like in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, I believe, that they're also doing the same thing, stopping people who are, brandishing these flags. So I don't understand where this world is going in terms of that. But it's just, like, honestly, both the Conservatives, Liberals, NDPs, any political party at this point lost my respect, with the exception of the PPC. They're pretty good, but unfortunately, they're never going to win in a million years, let's face it. And I actually personally talked to somebody who was running as a member of the PPC, and he said he just barely lost by a few votes. If you know him, he's Viva Fry on YouTube. He was honestly telling me he's glad that he didn't win, because he just didn't want to be part of this machine that wouldn't get anything done. He didn't want to be a part of this machine that lies all the time for a living. He didn't want to be a part of any of that. And so he thought that he would have more reach on YouTube, which I agree with. But that just goes to show, for someone who is a lawyer and someone who knows politics intimately, that he's going to say, I don't want to be any part of it. Even if I have a chance of making a positive change, I just don't want any of that. And I think that speaks volumes. And for me personally, I used to be conservative, and I still would call myself, on the right side of things. I'm definitely not middle or left. But would I call myself a conservative now? Probably not, because just everything associated with the Conservatives, they're like, especially with Aaron O'Toole, that, let's be honest, he was just a liberal in a blue coat. So I'm at this point very concerned for, the future of the country, because nobody seems to stand up for what is right. Maybe Pierre Poilievre, but who knows? They could get to him as well. So I don't know. In my opinion, I just don't see this going in a positive direction from here. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that. I know it's not what everybody wants to hear, but it's just see, that's the thing. I never used to be political before this, and this is exactly the reason why. Because it's depressing when the more you know, the more you don't want to know, right? So there you go. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, unfortunately, I've had experience with politics, and I got out of politics because there's a lot of, I find for lack of a better word, the scum rises to the top. I mean, there are a lot of idealists in all of the parties, whether they're like, conservatives, NDP, liberals, and the Greens. But even let's take, for example, the party like the Greens. There are a lot of earnest people who are supporting, environmental protection of our planet. But when you go up from mine, this is just my own personal experience in the Green, you'll find out that racism up there, like what the the ex-leader Anna May Paul experienced with the Greens. I mean, I observed that kind of racism long before she experiences racism, closed-door politics, corruption, authoritarian tendencies, doing things behind closed doors. All these major parties, the Greens, the NDP, the Liberals, and even the Conservatives have those sort of incestuous politics. But one of the things which are, to me, disturbing as well, you might probably have a comment on this, Chris, is hypocrisy. I know, for example, the former leader of the Conservative Party, before Erin O'Toole, he stood up when we had Elizabeth May. She was talking about, supporting the Emergency Measures Act, which includes a lot, people locking down people's bank accounts for political, reasons. And then she's standing up, she's supporting this. And then the former leader of the Conservative Party said that, well, you have the distinguished record of having a criminal record, and we're conducting criminal activity when you were trying to prevent certain, what you view to be environmentally supportive events happening in British Columbia, and you got arrested, so that if the War Measures Act was applying to you, you should have your bank account frozen as well. So that's what a former leader of the Conservative Party said. And I just find there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. But when you were talking about Tamara, is she partially of First Nations background? You were saying someone is of First Nations background who's one of the leaders of the Freedom Convoy.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether she's Mohawk or Métis, something like that. But I don't believe she's full Indigenous, but I think she's half. Yeah, part.
Okay. She's okay then, because that's something that the media would not want to talk about too much, the mainstream media, because it would not support their narrative that this is like a white supremacist, a plot, in Parliament Hill, and if they say that she's a First Nations person, then that's going to conflict with their narrative. Or she has a background there.
I know, and for me, like, I don't know, the whole racism thing, like, when I hear somebody say, oh, like, you're racist, oh, this person's racist, like, I don't even have a reaction anymore. Like, it's to the point where it's being used so often. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, oh, okay, whatever, guys. This person's racist. We know, we've heard that a million times. Okay. Yeah. But, like, at this point, there's no reaction to it. I don't know why the government keeps on using it again and again and again to try and fear people, to alienate people from certain groups. And I was having a lot of people talk to me about the Great Reset, if you guys are familiar with that, and the New World Order. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole. And, they were telling me that from early on, from the 80s, 90s onward, there was this massive push to divide people, and then so it would distract from what's really going on in Parliament. And I think that says a lot, because it's true. I mean, how many ways are we divided today? We're divided based on finances, we're divided based on race, we're divided now even based on medical procedures as far as vaccination, unvaccination. There's a massive tension between that as well. And then there's all these movements like the Antifa, BLM. There's some people who won't even look at you if you don't support BLM, or, if you do support it. It's just crazy. I think the beauty of this movement was that for a moment, even if it was for a very short time, people just forgot about all that. People forgot about, I'm white, black, Indigenous, whatever. We're just people. We're just Canadians. And that was so refreshing, because people for just 3 weeks were able to go back to normal. People were able to interact with each other and talk to each other like there was nothing there. There was no division. There was no anything blocking them from just making those close connections. And it was interesting. I was actually talking to a friend I made at the Convoy last night, an older gentleman, and he was telling me, well, Chris, don't you know why they say 6 feet apart, social distancing? Because when you stay 6 feet or more apart, you can't make that connection with the body language, and you can't make that connection with your hearts and with your minds, and you can't be close with somebody and intimate with somebody. So it just prevents that from happening. And I thought, that's really interesting, because this whole pandemic has affected mental health so much. People not being able to be connected and interacting with each other in the way that they were meant to. You can't even see people's smiles anymore. So I just think that a lot of people were having this convoy as their last hope, and it was immensely disappointed. Even though it didn't personally affect me, I'm not massively financially affected if this convoy fails, but I could just feel for the people that this was their last hope, and they got that completely taken away from them.
Were you going to see, wanted to make a comment, Ruth, about mental health, or a question, Ruth?
Yeah, definitely. The pandemic has pushed a lot of people to isolation, and then it comes with own plethora of problems that comes with it, and just the connection is just lost. Even families divided, all of that. I really agree to Chris's point of, how we are basically being divided, and just I think I if we just focus on the problems that we have, or forget all about the division, then we will have more time to solve our problems, like world hunger and
Yeah.
things like that. It's an amazing thing that you were in this convoy, and I guess I wish we were there, right? Right. To
Well,
see
I
it.
was there. I was there
You
personally.
were there, right?
Yeah, I was there, and in Ottawa, and to me, I mean, there was a lot of people who, there was one, I believe, member of Parliament, which said, "Oh, this is like Canada Day," and they were like criticizing her. "Oh, how can it be like Canada Day when these are like racist, psychotic, terrorists and stuff like that?" I mean, it was not only like Canada Day. I'm speaking as someone a black Canadian who is completely offended by these people who are trying to misappropriate what racism is. But I went out there, and to me, it's like better than Canada Day, because the reason I say that is that when I go to Canada Day, it had the crowds of Canada Day and stuff, and had the flags of Canada Day, but it was better than a Canada Day energy, because there was truly a connected common purpose, more than simply being this what has become an abstract idea of, oh yeah, we're Canadian, we're celebrating Canada Day, and we're just sort of walking ahead. There was actually people who were making eye connection, which had a genuine affinity to people and a sense of social responsibility, to the extent to which they not only, as you mentioned, Chris, helped the homeless people, a homeless person, and reached out and make sure that they kept the place clean, and togetherness, as sort of a looking out for each other, which was so transcending that it actually dropped the crime rate in Ottawa. And I mean, that gunplay that person with a gun walking in Rideau Center, that was after the convoy energy. So Candice Bergen talking about that having to do with the, to legitimate anything about the War Measures Act, is absolutely and completely irresponsible and a hideous misrepresentation. But I'm just saying that was like people, and I'm just find it shocking. And then we have this person, for example, I'm walking down the street, and there's this trucker, and they're laughing, everybody's smiling, right? And there's this guy there, right? He's like anti, again, he's against the protesters, and he like gives them the finger like this, again, and then the convoy people, they just kind of smile at him, and they didn't hack with him with any kind of hostility. They could have given him the finger too, but he just kind of smiled like this, and then he giving him the finger like that. So to me, the mean-spiritedness was came from those sort of the anti-protesters, the people against the convoy, was just simply kind of made up stories. You'd go on Twitter, and these people even would say, "Oh yeah, I was harassed and this and that thing." Oh, okay. Do you have any video of these allegations? And they have no video representation. I mean, if this was happening, then I would have seen on YouTube a live. There could have been a live streamer which says, "Oh yeah, I'm the anti-protester live streamer. I'm going to show you all this hate going on." I mean, there's not one single shred of video or other evidence that substantiates all this Twitter buzz, which in my view is just people seeing stuff on the CBC and CTV, and then coming up with this using their wild imagination to start posting stuff on Twitter that had nothing to do with it. And just like you had that person giving them the finger, I mean, there was no hostility going on. There were just people just sitting, smiling, eating, just being in a cheery mood. And this guy gratuitously walks around with a finger. I mean, and then he's going to be the same kind of guy who's going to go on Twitter that said that he was being harassed. I mean, it's just like this mentality that the prime minister and his cohorts are kind of supporting, which is designed to orchestrate these people in terms of there's this hate. And the same thing Hitler did. Oh yeah, it's the communists, and oh, it's the Jews, and that would be used to turn people, the Germans, against anybody who looked to be communist, anybody who looked to be intellectual, anybody who looked to be Jewish. They got harassed until the point of the gas chamber and stuff. And I just find it disturbing that the same kind of gigantic lies, are being used by the Prime Minister Jagmeet Singh and his confederates to completely whip up hatred, not from the convoy, but from other Canadians who are to push them into this contrived imagination that there's something going on which is not going on, that there's a need for a emergency act for a situation that doesn't exist, and now we're going to seize people's bank accounts and imprison, just like, for example, before I go on, because I'm just ranting right now a bit, but I just find that one of the disturbing image I saw, which you probably saw too, Chris, was the Ottawa police banging down the door of some small business person who was feeding the truckers, and all of a sudden he should be arrested simply for feeding trucker and simply for trying to run his business and try to keep afloat during the pandemic, and he's all of a sudden going to be arrested. And then you have the Ottawa police putting out these hypocritical messages. Oh, well, we've cleared out the unlawful assembly, so you can now patronize the businesses. Yeah, patronize the businesses and not feeding the truckers and other people. So I just find it so shocking going on. I just wondering if you have any thoughts on that, Chris, in terms of hypocrisy and that's feeding truckers. You're going to be locked up. Supporting, giving a $25 donation to a charity that was legal. You're going to ex post facto and says, okay, it was legal at that time, but we've made it illegal now. Now, anybody who supported that before we made it legal, we're going to now freeze their bank accounts. I mean, how is that consistent with the rule of law? So it's just wondering if you have any sort of any additional thoughts about my sort of rant I'm going on here with.
Quite a few. Yeah. So first of all, I think that this was all perpetrated by the people in Parliament, as well with the whole closure of the businesses, because there was really no reason that they had to be closed. I'm not sure what sort of letter or threat they got to say that they should be closed, but there was no reason to. I mean, there was a couple businesses on the main strip there that remained open, and they made a killing. And that's what capitalism is all about. If you're going to do what is necessary to make money, you're going to be rewarded for it. And they should have been. Absolutely. like, there's no reason to be closed. Oh, well, there's the violence going on. Well, no, there was not a single window broken. Nobody got harassed. Nothing in terms of business owners. It was, in fact, the anti-protesters, as I mentioned before. But the craziest part about all this is, and that's where it ties into how intelligent this whole thing has been designed. Because if you brand them as terrorists, then you can get things like the Emergency War Act passed. And then you can justify things like freezing their bank accounts. So it's just a whole, it's a building block. One after another builds on top of each other. And it snowballs into something where, the people are just justifying anything now. Oh, yeah, kill all the truckers with firing squad. Yeah, like, what is this? Where is this going to end, right? Like, you take away someone's livelihood to the sense that you freeze all their bank accounts, you steal their truck, you take their insurance. So not only do they not have a truck, but now they can't drive. So that's like destroying someone intimately. And the people are just like, yeah, cheering. But okay, it's nice when it happens to your enemy, but what if it happens to you? You're not going to be as happy about it. If that happens to you or someone in your family, oh, wait a minute, that's not fair. Well, was it fair to the people who it happened to beforehand, just because you don't like them? So there's a lot of thoughts about that. But for me personally, I'm also very concerned because there has been rumors circulating, and actually at this point, they're not rumors anymore, that the government is shutting down YouTube channels that make the government look bad. So people who have like videos of, the trampling with the horses, people who have videos of, certain things that happened in the House of Commons, and, with the riot police, maybe pepper spraying people, they just contact them at random. Okay, you're going to take down your videos voluntarily, or we're going to delete your YouTube channel. And for anyone who knows, Mr. Sunshine Baby on YouTube, he's got maybe like 225,000 subscribers, and he was posting constantly about this. He posted a video basically saying, yeah, I got a call from the government, and they did not give me a choice but to delete these videos. And I don't know exactly what he was said or what kind of threats he was told to take them down. But now he has basically 3 videos up that are deemed, I guess, worthy of remaining up there. But, he had thousands of videos out there to expose the lies of the left and the lies of the government, and he got totally taken down. Another one, Zoke, who was a live streamer like myself, he got everything taken down as well. And I believe that he did it voluntarily just out of fear for what happened to Mr. Sunshine Baby. But that's all to lead to this, is I now am personally concerned for my financial security and for my well-being. And I now rely on this YouTube channel going into the Convoy. I just had a really small business here that I was running at home, and although I still do, it's not really anything that you can make a life on. I was banking on the fact that this Convoy would succeed. And as a person who just graduated from university, and as a person who is unvaccinated, I don't really care telling people that anymore. I got hate for it, a little while ago, but now I don't care. But the point being is, you graduate into this world where, okay, where's your Vax Pass? Any single job that is of good reputation and, $25 an hour plus, all require a Vax Pass. So, what can I do, right? And so after I was streaming and after a little while, I got monetized. And so now this channel is my life. It is, I dedicate every hour of the day to, besides doing interviews, of course. And you know what? Like, if they take that away from me, I'm going to have nothing. So I'm very, 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 very concerned about this digital tyranny that is going on, and whether or not they're going to take away my videos because I made somebody look bad. It's a big thing.
Well, definitely. I mean, to me, what you say is not a big step, because the interview that we're having today, for example, is on YouTube, and I'm having a background in law. I'm very careful in what I say and what I don't say, and you're being as well. So So we know there's a censorship going on. And I mean, so it's not a big step for that to happen. It's not a big step for Trudeau to be calling up people and telling them take down their video, because we already have YouTube and these social media giants censoring for the most lightest thing. I mean, there's certain buzzwords, for example, on LinkedIn. If you use the term apparently National Socialism on LinkedIn, you will get dinged for bullying. They don't like you using the term National Socialism, because National Socialism is basically what's happening right now. There's a lot of people calling it communist, but it's not communist. I mean, classical communism was not concerned about coercion. I mean, what we have in China, people call it communist, but it's not communism, it's Maoism. National Socialism is basically basically the term National Socialism came from the National Socialist Workers' Party. You probably already know this, Chris, you might know this already, Ruth. The National Socialist Workers' Party. So what Hitler did was that he used the rhetoric of socialism and the greater good to inspire people who have economic and financial problems, and the workers, to support his cause. But instead of using the socialism's normal goal of democracy, as in democratic socialism, which the NDP was supposed to be about, he sort of is like he did a genetic experiment. Let's take off the democracy from socialism, put fascism. So now we have a socialist rhetoric with an authoritarian, totalitarian objective. So what's happening right now, there's a lot of people who are talking about, it's the left, which is doing all this bad stuff. But there are people on the left who are on the real left, like Savannah Robinson and Brian Pickford, who was a signatory of the Charter of Rights. I mean, these are the real people on the left who would be against this. But what we have is that the left, as we say, has been bought out by these National Socialist backroom people who are elites, who are fascists, but are using the rhetoric of socialism, as Hitler did, to create let's do this for the greater good, but it's for our authoritarian purpose. But don't think about your rights, think about the greater purpose. And that's what they're doing and stuff like this. So this is kind of what disturbs me. Again, I'm kind of ranting again right now and stuff, but yeah, I mean, definitely there's a lot of disturbing stuff going on right now in terms of the YouTube channel. I always suggest to people, you want to diversify. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, and be mindful of the censorship. But in terms of the Holocaust, for example, Hitler didn't say that, okay, well, you were quiet. We're going to spare your life. We're not going to send you to the gas chamber. Most of the people who got sent to the gas chamber were completely faceless. So unfortunately, being silent when you have an onslaught in the totalitarian regime has not proven to be generally in anybody's best interest. As a matter of fact, Hitler, that's what he did. He kept picking off groups by group, and every group stayed silent, saying, he's not going to pick on me. I'm going to be quiet, and I'll watch them sent to the gulag. So that's basically what is happening right now. Different groups are being targeted, and any group that remains silent, they're eventually targeted. And then so the idea is to keep targeting groups until there's nobody left, and then that's how you get a fascist authoritarian tyranny. So so definitely from my standpoint is that your work is definitely courageous, but I hope it does not prompt you to be silent, because we rely on voices like yours and coverage like yours to maintain the semblance of democracy. And hopefully, based upon voices like yours, we can utilize the real truth out there to recover our democracy from a fascist narrative. Because if it wasn't for live streamers, that would simply expedite our drift to fascism and our drift to being locked in our homes, like what's going on in Australia. So we definitely commend the work that you're doing, Chris, and hope that it doesn't result in you and other live streamers become silenced, because we definitely cannot rely on the CBC and the CTV and these narratives.
Oh gosh, man, I hope so. And like I said, I depend on this YouTube channel. I never, to be fair, I never thought that this would become so big. I kind of just documented it for myself. I went to Ottawa saying, oh, well, I identify with this protest. Okay, well, I'm just going to film, see what happens. And, maybe it can become a home video at best after the fact. But no, it became like, at one point, I think I had 18,500 people watching me at one time. And I was just blown away that, whoa, this is crazy. This amount of people care about me and what's going on and what I'm doing here. And it was just mind boggling to me that there was numbers like that really cared what was going on personally.
Yeah, because people want to know. I mean, I guess we all feel that sometimes the news and the mainstream is like, there's just something wrong with it. We just can't pinpoint it. So the rise of YouTubers and live streamers like you really give a good service to people who's wanting to know the truth. That's what I think. So thank you for doing what you do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Ruth. But
I think you made a great point, Chris, about the businesses staying open, because when I was, going in downtown Ottawa, I noticed that the businesses were open, whether they were supermarkets, convenience stores, food places, they were all doing great business. And again, there was no violence. There was no reason why anybody to close. I mean, we didn't have a Portland situation. And again, those stuff that were violence were taking place in the United States, where we have the looting and where we have all this crazy stuff, those are all connected to BLM and Antifa. And then the Prime Minister is kneeling with BLM, on Parliament Hill, while at the same time denouncing violence and violence in general, and then making up stories of violence taking place in Ottawa. So, I mean, it's just shocking that he's saying that, oh, I have no problem with being in protest in causes and values I align with. And he's at BLM. BLM is in turn linked to, police reports of looting and violence. And then so what's that mean? Does that mean he's legitimating the violence? I mean, what happens, what about that? I mean, so again, when I was in downtown Ottawa, the businesses were doing well that were open. There was no reason to close. There was absolutely no violence. There was no violence. People it was clean. I mean, to me, downtown Ottawa, I mean, to me, lacks a lot of time cleanliness. To me, I find being a Torontonian, I find downtown Toronto a lot cleaner than Ottawa. So the fact that we had these protesters in such a huge event, keeping the place immaculate, and there was no reason to close down. I mean, I don't understand why even Rideau Center was closed. I mean, there's no violence taking place. And the only crazy stuff happened when they were cleared out and there was somebody walking around with a gun. I mean, all the businesses that were open were like, we did well that I saw. There was no threats against them. There was no issues going on that caused them to be closed down. And yet, why were they closed? I mean, if they want to close on their own volition, that's fine, but it should not be blamed on protesters, which had nothing to do with any allegations of violence that the Prime Minister and Jagmeet Singh and all these people are trying to allege.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right about that. And it was, I saw this coming for quite some time, actually, and I'll tell you why. Because for things like BLM and Antifa and all this stuff, the key and the difference with them is that the people support it. And I think the reason for that is because they have deep pockets, they have deep connections like George Soros and all these others. And the media covers them in a positive way. I think that's a huge difference. The mainstream media covers them in a way that favors them, even though they're violent. And so I think the reason that they are violent is because they know that they can get away with it. So it's complicated to explain. But when I was on the streets, and when I was hearing rumors and reports of people saying, oh yeah, the conservatives now denounce the movement as well. Yeah, okay, we heard your point, whatever, but it's time to leave. I thought, wait a minute, like, no, this is not right. If now both the Liberals and the NDP denounce it, which wasn't surprising, but then the Conservatives also denounce it, then that's a problem. Because then when all three of the major political parties denounce it, then the people are going to think, okay, well, nobody supports this thing. Okay, well, it must be true that they're terrorists. And so even more people are going to buy into this narrative that they really are violent. They really are bad people. And so from that point on, I was like, okay, well, if it doesn't have the support of the people, this will fail, because the politicians will key in on that, and they will say, okay, now it's reached a tipping point where there's enough people that do not support it, and there's enough people now that are against it, that now we can move in, we can use violence against them, and we can get the people to cheer for us as we do it. So it's all about that step-by-step process of, okay, first we got to demonize them, then we got to bring people to our side, then we got to strike. And after that is the censorship, the cleanup job. We got to make sure that there's no leaks. And so, I mean, am I surprised? Absolutely not. Am I disappointed? Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's a step by. It's like a group of people in a boardroom. It's like almost like a military plan where you have everything going on in stages, with the support and coordination of key politicians and people in the media to create this support a propaganda campaign. And it's like a very clinical, coordinated. I mean, I'm just amazed how you can coordinate so disparate, apparently, organizations, from the Toronto Star to, to all these. I mean, the only organization that's been really standing out in terms of media and trying to give you some integrity is you have the National Post has been sort of an isolation of integrity, when you have like a couple of their columnists there, which are, including Conrad Black there, and, which have tried to say some stuff with integrity. But aside from that, it's just an elaborate coordination going on. And the two members of parliament, at least, who has tried to maintain integrity is Mr. Scheer. Big ups to Mr. Scheer for, trying to be, a member of parliament, a man of integrity, as well as Mr. Poilievre. He's been also trying to support a certain amount of integrity. So a big ups to Mr. Poilievre as well. But aside from that, just a lot of wishy-washiness from the new interim leader. When she can blame the protests on some gunman that had nothing to do with the protesters, and trying to say, oh yeah, maybe the prime minister was right. I mean, what kind of leadership is that? I mean, that's just like so disturbing. The allegations that have nothing to do with. I mean, again, these are the same politicians we entrust with truth to take us out of the pandemic. And how can you trust politicians how can we trust them for the integrity to take us out of the pandemic when they're telling bold-faced lies of thousands of people with Canadian flags, and we see them on live stream, and then you're going to say that all these people out there are like thousands of Nazi swastika carrying, violent, crazy psychopaths who are all white nationalists. We're going to ignore the First Nations drummers out there. We're going to ignore the black people. We're going to ignore the Asians. We're going to know all the South Asian truckers that support. We're going to know all the facts of these diversity of people coming together who are of all backgrounds and not a fringe. Also, as the Prime Minister says, they are well representative of Canadians. They're not only from Ottawa, but from across Canada. And you're going to characterize them as fringe, white nationalists, racists, swastika-carrying, race misogynists, who are threatening violent insurrection, and as the Ottawa police say, an unlawful assembly, that we're going to seize their bank accounts of people which donated to a lawful charity. I mean, this the lawlessness that we see going on now is not by the peaceful protesters waving their flag. The lawlessnesses are people being threatened with carrying a Canadian flag, police officers which seized the gas of truckers as contraband, as if it was cocaine, and then allegedly dilute that gas, seize firewood, trample innocent civilians, threaten civilians with a sonic weapon. I mean, assault, if we're talking about assault, the crime of assault is simply, you don't have to push somebody, or you just have to, stick a weapon or threaten them in an imminent way, which violates their sense of bodily autonomy. You just have to do that for it to be assault. So I'm wondering, what kind of assault can we lay on those which now put up weapons that you would probably not likely see outside of a military theater, put up a sonic boom. I mean, what can be more assaultive than people standing around? You can just see them standing around peacefully. They're not pushing an offense, to threatening what, as you saw in that one of the last videos you took, with a sonic weapon and stuff that can, I think you said it can cause bleeding, air bleeding, among other terrible things. I mean, what kind of assault is that? I mean, and then one image which I saw was poignant is, there was a fence. I mean, there was people just standing around a fence, and then there was like some cops behind it, and then the fence fell down. People didn't try to rush in and get through the fence like what we saw happening in Washington, D.C. when they went in the White House. They put up the fence, the protesters, and the police just looked on. I mean, there's video of that. I mean, all this is peaceful video. So one thing would be great if, you yourself on your own, or maybe as a collaboration of live streamers, put together some sort of independent film of the Freedom Convoy and all these images for people to see, of people putting up fences, people helping homeless people, people doing kind things. If all the YouTube streamers came together as a collaboration, put together an independent film and stuff of the real Freedom Convoy, I think that would be doing a great service and stuff like that, because because there's so much stuff going on right now with people making allegations of things that with no evidence. Oh, swastikas going on. I mean, it's only, like you said, there was one person with a swastika, and he was doing a satire. That's why he was there. He was there as a satire. He wasn't there trying to support the swastika and stuff like that. So we have all these people making allegations with not one video piece of evidence, not one photographic evidence to support the contention of violence. Meanwhile, we have thousands upon thousands of hours of video footage from live streamers like yourself of peaceful, loving photos of, when I went down there, I mean, unlike Canada, I mean, people are friendly and positive and stuff like that. But I saw people coming up to me and go, "Hello, brother," brother, and the very sort of a brother and sisterhood, kindness, sharing their stories of why they're there, approaching you, smiling faces. I saw like YouTubers eating food, getting to know people, even the police. I mean, most of the police were like, nice people and stuff like that. Nice people. They didn't want to, I mean, they sympathize. I mean, again, most of the police sympathize. So this is why I find it interesting. Again, I'm ranting on and on, but I find it interesting that the Trudeau government, rather than using all these people, didn't want apparently these cops, these responsible police, would develop friendly relations with the truckers. I mean, they could have just done things in a peaceful way. What does he do? He brings together people who are not from the community, from across Canada, particularly those Sûreté de Québec green uniform paramilitary people and stuff. And then he no badge number. So if anybody assaults you, you can't identify them. So anytime a police takes away their badge number, they effectively become a secret police and stuff like that. I mean, that's like Stasi tactics. So, I mean, I mean, that is like the tearing away of, so there's no accountability there. Police remove their badges. They're from jurisdictions outside of the city, and stuff like that. I mean, it's a deliberate attempt and it's like people I don't know what you heard, Chris, but I heard some allegations of that these people these police were apparently handpicked to do various operations, which were not very kind, to contrast with the very nice police that we saw there, which were trying to be decent. I mean, I saw very cordial reactions with the police. I mean, police saying, okay, could you please move your truck so that we can get emergency vehicles and stuff like that. I mean, that's very kind, responsible action. Like I said, most of the police were nice, but there were certain agent provocateur cops that seemed to be there up to no good, like those particular officers, whoever they were from, trying to knock down and accost a business person, trying to simply serve food and trying to stay afloat. They were going to arrest him and stuff like that. I mean, do you have any sort of comments or thoughts about that? Or observations and stuff like that about, I mean, any sort of observations you have of any sort of positive thing that comes to mind in terms of, because again, I mean, there's any positive experience you want to relate so that people would impress upon the viewers today about what experiences you might have had.
Sure. So as far as the police go, it's important to note that a lot of them, I would say most of them, if not every single one, was very, very happy and nice with everyone for the first, I would say, 1 or 2 weeks. They were smiling. People were bending into their cars and talking to them personally. And it was very clear that they were on our side. When the riot police came in, there was a change because, and I had found out the reason for it afterwards, was that they were pretty much told that you have to come, you have to help break these protesters up, or there's going to be consequences. So the craziest part about this is that they faced disciplinary action if they were not doing this and if they were not using violence against these protesters. Now, take into account that out of the 700 police officers that were there, they were taken from every province and territory here. I heard Quebec police were there, police from Toronto, all over the area, York and Peel region. Then you had people, you had police even coming from as far as Vancouver to come and help out with this. So it's crazy. And another thing that was very important to notice is that every single policeman there was 35 years or under, which means that they were all rookies. They all were just there because they wanted to keep their job, and they didn't want to, upset the waters or anything. Because I was speaking to an actual retired correctional officer that was there, and he was saying, yeah, none of the older guys with any amount of seniority would do this. They all retired early or walked off. We heard that halfway through this protest, half of the Ottawa police force walked off. And I bet you any money that was the older folks. The people who were close to retirement, who retired early, the people who just didn't want to deal with this anymore. And out of maybe 200, 300 police officers that I personally interacted with, I saw one that was over 35 years old approximately. So that's important to note. But as far as the police officers before that, they were all very friendly. They were all, hey, no problem, man, whatever. Can you just get to the sidewalk or whatever? Hey, can you maybe do this instead of that? Or no anger whatsoever. But it seemed like they knew that they could do whatever they wanted once they were there on the 2 days that it ended. They were pushing people. They were pepper spraying people. They were arresting people without warning. I know a fellow live streamer got arrested, ZOT. He was given one warning, and he was in the middle of having dialogue with one of the police officers saying, oh, hey, so where can I actually film from? Can I film over here? Can I film over here? And in his shot, I actually watched it yesterday night. It was unbelievable. The police officer across the street came running over, just excited to arrest him. It was unbelievable. And yep, that's it, you're under arrest. Well, why? And so he was held for 12 hours and then let out. And I believe he was charged. He didn't say for what. But it's just unbelievable that they just think, oh, yep, now's the time, if any, to get away with whatever I want. So I think, in short, what I think is the biggest effect that came from this convoy is that the police there's no way they can recover from this, because beforehand, when you think about it, you had BLM, you had Antifa, generally in the public, it was no secret that the police weren't exactly loved anymore. And now so up until this point, right-wing people still had a lot of respect for the police. They still, okay, officer, whatever, yeah, man, don't worry about it. But now that this happened, now that these people were pepper sprayed, trampled, and just beaten mercilessly, there is going to be a massive change. And I think now both sides of the spectrum, whether you're right or left, are now going to have a disdain and a deep disrespect for the police. So I don't see how they recover from this, to be honest.
One thing, again, I saw that Zot footage you talked about. I mean, Zot was just he's a friendly guy. He's a friendly live streamer. He was just asking directions. He was in one particular police officer he asked, and then all of a sudden, like you said, someone kept charging him like he recognized him, because I believe Zot's footage has been used by, I believe he was saying, Fox, and maybe, and I'm sure people, they identify Zod on Fox, so I'm sure he's pretty well known, by name. So it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Let's arrest him. You know what I mean? That's my personal opinion. What I saw going on there, a sort of a just like when you start in countries like, like authoritarian regimes like Russia and so forth, you have people being arrested for political motivations and not anything else. I mean, he was being friendly. He's not being any violence. And all of a sudden, you're just going to arrest somebody and charge somebody for just sort of, standing there and asking directions. With that said, there's one quick point I also wanted to make. When this whole like emergency measures started, and from my personal experience as well, I mean, one police force, which from my experience, being a minority and observing things, I mean, the Ontario Provincial Police, in my view, has been, in general, from my observations, a relatively ethical police force. They are to this date, from my experience, very professional. I noticed that when all this crazy stuff was going on there, I could not identify the OPP having anything to do with this. So I just found it very interesting, at least from what I saw. I saw these unmarked, so-called apparently Sûreté de Québec, Quebec's provincial police in Ottawa. Okay, what is Quebec police doing in Ottawa and stuff like that when this is technically OPP jurisdiction? What are they doing here? Are they here because the OPP didn't want to do this dirty job because they're trying to keep their reputation, and we had to be bringing in these unmarked Quebec cops into the picture with RCMP? I mean, that is quite bizarre to be in Ontario, okay, is OPP jurisdiction, yet you have Sûreté Quebec police with RCMP. So I would like to, did you see OPP in the front line, a part of this sort of nastiness going on? Because I didn't.
No, so I actually heard the same thing that you did, Ray. So they stayed out of it. Yeah, so they had no part of that whatsoever, and I found that interesting. Another thing I found interesting is the garb that these police officers were wearing. It just made it seem like futuristic almost, like some sort of like stormtrooper-esque sort of era, and with the whole New World Order thing, they described that they want UN soldiers, just one band of, united police force, as so to say. So it's almost like, when you watch these futuristic movies and it's kind of like, Squid Games, where they have those guys with the outfits on, and they all look the same. Yeah, and it's just like exactly like that. It's some futuristic sort of, same uniform for everybody. Everybody has the helmet on. They look exactly the same. They have, certain colors to distinguish what rank they are. And it's just so bizarre. It was just like we advanced, 200 years into the future temporarily just for a couple of days. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind that they did something like that. And, it's honestly, it puts me in a state of fear for what the future of our country is going to look like based off of that. And having seen it firsthand, there's no going back from that. There's no unseeing that. And I don't think a lot of people witness that through live streams or on the media, because the media would never show you that. So honestly, aren't you guys a little concerned? Like, well, I know I
can't imagine, but I'm having chills right now.
Yeah.
To me, like again, like what you said, those people in the green uniforms reminded me of, like, again, futuristic. I was thinking more like I can't remember the name of it, that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where Mars is associated with it, and they have all this in the future. What was that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Terminator.
Total Recall and Terminator, yeah. Total Recall in particular, yeah. Total Recall. It reminded me of these, like, and one of the things, again, this is just my opinion, but when I was watching the live stream of the RCMP and these green uniformed, futuristic, paramilitary-looking police, when people were saying things in French and English and stuff like that, you can tell, particularly one particular police officer, visible minority, you can tell that they could understand what everybody was saying, because their face would react. Sometimes they would smile, or their eyes. You could tell the RCMP that, okay, they're understanding what's going on. But the people in the green uniform, they did not give any indication that they could understand anything what's going on. I find their reaction very strange. They're very strange, blank face, that words, like, you see one group of lineup officers who are RCMP in blue, they were all understanding what was going on, because people would say things and they would sometimes smile or look, or they try to keep professional, but they were observant. And the people in the green uniforms did not react in any sort of emotional way to any comments, anything. There was just no reaction. That's very strange, surreal.
So those were the Quebec police.
Yeah, those are, like, supposedly the Quebec unmarked Sûreté Quebec police, which is right. Like, I mean, even soldiers, like, if you think of the military footage of the military people, even they will react in anger. You can see their face focus or concentrate. Even a soldier would normally react and stuff like that. But those unmarked green Sûreté Quebec uniforms, whatever, they were just very disturbing when you have that, a complete unemotional, like you have like RoboCop, some sort of robotic, future android cops. That's what they were like, androids.
For the benefit of our audience who are like in race generation, Terminator, and for the benefit of the audience who are in our generation, Chris, Squid Games, okay?
Okay, awesome. Good stuff. Okay, then. So don't want to
covered everyone.
Awesome. So don't want to take up too much more of your time. So any sort of comments, wisdom you want to leave the viewers today in terms of, we try to cover as many points as possible, give people a sort of a bird's eye perspective of, an observation personally of what's going on, so that people can compare it to the sort of the narrative which is being put forth by the so-called mainstream media and the politicians and stuff like that. So any sort of perspective or observations or thoughts or anything you want to leave in terms of, so that people can sort of lead people like you like lead people today?
I have quite an important closing statement here, and this is something that I've noticed only just yesterday night from viewing my analytics on YouTube, and it's a big problem. So while the convoy was absolutely magnificent in terms of turnout, and so many people were there to support the cause, and it was in many ways refreshing to hear that so many people were like-minded, such as myself and you guys, of course. But the big problem here that I think is really, really going to become apparent in the next 5 to 10 years is when I was there, I was one of the only young people. And a lot of the streamers were young like myself, but there was very, very little amount of people there that were young. And so that's great that we have all these people who are of the older generation, maybe 40 to 60 plus, that think outside the box. But the young people is the future. The young people are going to be the ones who carry the flame onwards and continue the fight. And it was really mind-boggling to me, because when I was looking at my analytics last night, less than 1% of people who watch my videos are 20 or below. Less than 1%. Mm-hmm. And from 20 to 30, it's maybe like 3%. So it's really concerning to me that there's not going to be a future like my generation, or perhaps Ruth's generation, who carry on this flame, who carry this mentality and teach that to their kids, and so on and so forth. It's just kind of dying, and it's very sad. So I think my personal goal in this, after this convoy is done now, is going to be trying to reach that younger audience, because those are the people who we really need in this fight for freedom.
Definitely. Like you said, I mean, the younger people, in order to inspire them to be aware of what's going on, I just find, when I was in my 20s, I found that there was a lot more effort among us when we were 20s to be really critical of the establishment. And I think the reason why young people are like that is that when I was going into university, we had for example, our student newspaper. We would criticize the admin, we would criticize society being oppressive, et cetera, et cetera. But nowadays, what's happening in the university is that young people are not simply seeing themselves as being trying to, assert their identity and to have certain values that has to do with their individuality and keep on holding powers that account. They are simply focused on, I'm 20. I want to make as much money as possible. I want to have a nice career. I want to have a nice car. I want to have a nice house. So how I do that? I do that by trying to see how I can please the authority, how I can get the establishment to hire me and not rock any boat. So the more I can be seen as a nice, persuasive, non-boat rocker, which is not going to challenge something that I don't agree with, the more I can do that, the more I can get my nice job. So young people from the 60s, there's been a war against young people. Each generation, they try to make them more selfish. And the more selfish you make people, the more they're going to be less altruistic to care about anything going on other than their own personal space. So I think that we're seeing in this generation, it's been recent apex of, unfortunate, it's not because the young people are like that, it's because their survival. They're just trying to survive, and I'm 20, and I just want to get a nice job. I just want to drive a nice car, and I don't want to rock any boat. So that's what's going on. They're being pushed into that, which there needs to be, once they see through videos like yours, the live streaming, that, that they can't be so, closed-minded. They need to open themselves of the consequences, that, maybe they might think they might be good, but a nice car, but maybe their nice car, maybe they won't have that utopia, even if they agree with everything. Maybe it's going to lead to a dystopia that they didn't even know what. Maybe they're being fooled. So hopefully live stream is going to inspire that youth to be more sort of critical and be mindful and to be of what's going on around them. That, you know, I mean, it's like we're in a plane and we're about to crash, and there's no point you having your nails looking nice and having your hair looking nice or having your nice car, whatever, if you're going to crash along with the plane.
Right, exactly. And I just think to myself, yes, I would like all those things. Yes, I would like to have a nice life and a nice car and all this other things, but at what cost does it come? Personally, I wouldn't feel morally comfortable with, you know, getting the jab and just blindly obeying all of these rules, because, you know, what for? I know the state of the country is becoming worse and worse as a result of them. So I just couldn't morally, you know, obey these just blindly. So yeah, I just couldn't do it. That's why I went to the convoy. That's why I'm here with you guys. And it's, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time.
Awesome. So thank you very much for Chris for taking the time. You know, today we'll leave it at that because, again, we're on YouTube, so we're trying to keep everything YouTube friendly. There's also other things I could say, but we'll leave that for another time. But thank you very much for Chris. We're grateful for you being here today. And repeat again the live stream and just to check out Chris's YouTube channel. Repeat again, Red Prince, right?
It's Red Prince. I have just under 17,000 subscribers. So anyone who wants to check it out, there you go. That's my handle.
Awesome. And you cover not just the convoy, but a variety of pop culture and different kind of things going on Red Stream?
No, actually, I was a storyteller beforehand. But okay. I think what I'm going to do is amalgamate both of those, and I'm going to maybe cover slightly political topics and just, you know, tell stories of things who people, you know, might not have known happened, you know, certain historical events. Talking to one of my friends at the convoy, he gave me a few dates to talk about, and so I'm going to investigate those, and, you know, there's going to be more videos to come. I'm posting highlights every day, and, you know, there's more content to come all the time. You know, I'm not just going to be live streaming and then boom, the channel's dead, you know.
Okay, we don't want that. We don't want that. We can't get enough of you. We want to keep seeing some fresh content on there. Now that you've kind of wet our lips a little bit, we want to keep, you know, seeing what you have, what's going on with Red Prince, what's going on with Chris. We want to see more and more of you.
Exactly, and that's the thing. So I'm just posting these highlights now because I figure, well, you know, people might not have the time to watch a 2 to 3 hour live stream. So I want to engage that younger audience as much as possible to, you know, post those 2 to 8 minute clips there, just so that, you know, the people who don't have time to watch those longer clips, oh, okay, this is the important thing that happened this hour. This is the important thing that happened on this day. Oh, cool, let me check that out. And that's what my mission is at this point. And then once that comes to a head there and I complete all of that, then I'm going to go to my next mission and continue pumping out more quality content videos with the more original content.
That's awesome stuff. Anything to say, Ruth?
Well, I was very touched with his message for the youth. That was a very well thought of message. And we are rooting for you. We're here to support you. And we can't wait. What other things can you come up with for them? You know?
Oh, yeah. It's nonstop, baby. Here we go. It's just the starting point.
Awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to you, Chris, once again, Red Prince, a.k.a. and you know, Ruth, for being here today for another edition of Toronto Business Journal. And thank you very much for our viewers for watching us. And we look forward to seeing more of you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys so much.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. Bye, guys.
Awesome.